what can we do as
Yeah.
individuals, right, to be able to then now the question is also how do we know? Because there was recently I remember that there was a show on CNA. There was a coverage saying talking a little bit more about food insecurity. But one of the biggest challenges was that there was a lot of food wastage because they started amassing food, and then suddenly it's because I didn't want it or I can't eat it. So was there something that you had to face through this period as well to then better serve the community and give them what they needed as well?
So if I can do a shout out to everybody who is thinking of doing something. So um don't get me wrong, I am very supportive of anybody doing a grassroots, ground up kind of initiative. There are many big hearted people out there. But the problem is because you do not know how to identify clearly which are the people in need, exactly which blocks. So what happens is the more popular the areas that you
Mm,
think are the people that needs help, a lot of corporates have just gone out to do their ground up, go door to door. If they're wealthy enough, I spend $10,000, just I buy all the bundles, I pack them, and then I just drop off the food. So a lot of this duplication happens is because if you are already in need or you are not earning a regular income, someone that gives you extra food, of course I take first lah. Like why would I reject something, right? So that's why part of the accumulation or duplication is because there's too many big-hearted people that's
mm,
going around helping, sometimes in the wrong way. So if I can do an appeal, not just for the food bank, but for any of the food charities out there, please go to an accredited food charity and ask them, hey, do you need help? Whether is it monetary help, volunteering help, and volunteer your services and your money through the legit organizations that already actually needs help, right? So that you yourself won't be fishing for this needle, in the dark ocean, not knowing actually, I guess that this block, needs 200 bags of these stuff. This is number one. Then the
mm,
second thing about duplication, right, I would like to mention is that this is a national project the MSF is also doing because they themselves actually don't know where the food insecure people lies. There is no national database yet. So together, collectively, as all the food charities, we're now working very closely together under this food task force to actually start collecting data and cross-checking the addresses. And I would like to say that actually COVID has helped us a lot because if you remember the first circuit breaker that we were in last year, right? Because most of 95% of most of the NGOs on the ground, the family service centers were not permitted to open.
mm,
The food bank and other of the larger food charities was asked to continue to operate as essential firms. And we then had to go door to door, which meant that we had to collect everybody's addresses and deliver meals door to door. And with that, we had the privilege of collecting people's actually data and then start populating this database as one. So we kind of then realized that, hey, actually when some big-hearted person actually neighbors would like to we receive a lot of emails from neighbors now like I think my neighbor auntie two doors down is not getting food because nobody is
mm,
able to visit her. The social worker cannot visit her. The children also was not supposed to visit her. Can you please send food to her, for example? So there's someone that wrote, but maybe that person doesn't know that this particular lady is already getting help from somewhere else, right?
yeah.
So, but with this database that we generated, we were able to pop in that lady's address and then say, hey, this auntie is really getting help. So we actually weeded out duplications one by one. But I think importantly also is I just wanted to share with everybody that there is a subsection of people that is in need, but they also don't know where to get help. So while CNA has done a great job, we were part of the interview as well. And they
Mm,
actually floated up to the surface, all the excess food, this uncle with stacks of rice. But
yeah.
did you know that in our food insecurity report, it was shown that 70% of the severely food insecure they don't know where to get help. So it means that there's also a problem with the food charities. It means that while they are giving out a lot of food, but is it like too much food is given to the same people? Or secondly, there's not enough marketing out there or the right kind of marketing where this group of people that really maybe is starving on a couple of days, per month, they don't know where to get help. And so we are trying to address this problem right now. Like, why do they not know where to get help when we ourselves as laymen, we see ourselves, a church, a temple, a mosque is giving out so much food, right? There's cooked
Yeah.
meals, there's food bundles and everything else. So
Mm.
it's a double-edged sword sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's a great question because how would you even know, that they are number one, they don't have the food insecurity, and the next question is why. So you've gone, you and your team have actually gone door to door meeting some of these people, and what have the responses been? Has it really been about the marketing?
Yeah. So I think there are a few problems, okay, that we learned during last year, during this severe COVID time. So firstly, some of the people actually genuinely either they are illiterate,
Ah,
and because they don't even have a mobile phone, they actually cut off to the world. So I mean, yes, they have a roof over their heads, right? So in a given regular scenario, they will just walk downstairs, buy their food, whatever. If there's no more income, the bank account left with $10, for example, then they have to really balance. Do I spend on making sure that I got utilities for the next week? Or is it like, do I have to pay the utilities first? Vis-a-vis like eating my sotapia, right? Like for the next
mm,
so sometimes it's like this. And secondly, the way that aid is being disseminated in Singapore, it's a bit complicated. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but the way that Singapore does the means testing, it's quite complicated. So let's say at the school level, at the hospital level, maybe for the food level, the family service level, you want to get a bursary, etc. Your household family needs to be tested, right? So even if you have children that are not living with you, they need to declare their income, be asked very uncomfortable questions. So for some of the elderly, by right, I mean, I don't want to tell about my family stuff, so they would rather say, hey, if it's so difficult to get help, then I don't want to get help. I'll go figure out my own way. So this was one thing. And then the second thing is, which we have learned, is that some families actually know where to get all this food aid from. But their major complaint is this: I am not getting the food that I want to eat.
mm,
So they say, like a regular folk like you and I, we probably can walk into any food court, any kopitiam, any hawker center, any restaurant in a mall. Okay, so like now, we're asked to stay at home and things like that. We can choose, right? There's a
mm,
variety of items. So today I eat Indian, tomorrow I want to eat a mee siam, or something. But these people, if they have a cooked meal program, they have no choice. If today is curry cai png and every day is curry cai png, it's just curry cai png every day. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Malay, you're a Chinese lady or whatever, but every day you eat the same type of food, number one. And then secondly, the food is usually not to a good standard because it's not warm. The cooked meals are just hung at the door at a specific
right.
time. Yeah. And the other thing also is most of us, as donors as well, which is why we implemented our own bundle program, is because a lot of people, whenever they go out to give food aid, they always give the same thing. There's always rice, there's always oil, there's always some sort of canned food. But do you know that the most sought after product is like peanut butter, bread spreads,
Mm,
kaya, breakfast items, children's cereals, nutritious three-in-one hot beverages, for example. But these are not frequently at the top of people's list. And then like people give a lot of instant noodles as well, which actually you shouldn't be consuming that much. So some of the people say, hey, stop giving me food aid because every time you're giving me the same things of items that I actually don't want to consume. Yeah.
yeah. So that brings to the next point of in from food aid, it ends up becoming a food wastage again.
Yeah.
So isn't this a very strange cycle that kind of goes round? Now when it comes to that, right, do you end up having to collect from these from those who are receiving the aid and then being able to then supplement them with something else of what they want?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is we still don't go door to door to collect all these extra items, but we take a
Mm,
few initiatives to minimize food waste because every dollar donation counts to anybody, especially in today's very tight world, right? Where actually donations, every penny counts a lot to us. So firstly, we have briefed our volunteers. If you see this uncle already having so many bags of rations, but we're supposed to give some bundle to them, please don't give that household another bag of food because that uncle likely already have enough to last him for the entire month. We can always
right.
go back to him the next month and check if he still needs food. So this is one way of minimizing food waste, and that bundle can actually go to someone else in need. Plenty of people that will need it, number one. So the other thing that we have done is we have been collaborating with our 370 charity organizations for reverse collection. So
Mm,
sometimes, and Singapore's a great country. We celebrate like so many celebrations, right? Hari Raya, and then you have your, Vesak Day that just
Mm.
passed. So at different points, the different religious organizations are flooded with donations at different times of the year. So like, especially during the Raya period, for example, like Ramadan, there would be a lot of food that's floating around the mosque. So they say, hey, do you want to take these items and give it to someone else in need? So what we have done is we do reverse collection with the NGOs, the larger NGOs, or like, Vesak Day, the temples will be flooded with all the bihuns and all that. So we actually go down and say, hey, we would pick it up. And then so we don't need to buy so much, or we don't need to salvage so much donated of this bihun, for example. And then we actually just use this still very good food to be supplemented in the bundles, or just give it to other charities or smaller charity organizations that are not connected to the larger NGOs. So this was these are some of the efforts. And importantly, some of you may have already heard about our vending machines. The vending machines was actually born out of a need. So out of all the donations that we receive all the time from 2012 to now, the average number is we still have about 10 to 15% of the donations that cannot be redistributed. Whether is it to atas, so we have a lot of organic products that actually a lot of the underprivileged families, they don't know how to consume, number one. Secondly, the shelf life may also be too short. And thirdly, it's just not suited for our taste, for example. So we have a lot of interesting items like popcorn, potato chips, and things like that. So we have like 10 to 15% of the items that at the food banks level that we used to throw away. So we say, hey, let's do something interesting about this excess food donations. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we started our first food aid food pantry, as we call it, at Geylang. So it was a 24/7 operating shop. It was just called the food pantry. It was supposed to be a food aid program where anybody just walk in, you can get your free food. But people like you and I that are interested to find out, like, hey, can I buy something for $1? It was like $1 shop it's like a thrift
Mm.
shop for food. So, but we were actually just regenerating some revenue from this short shelf life donations that would otherwise be thrown away and giving it a new lease of life. So we started as a food pantry that was manned by an elderly gentleman. But soon we realized that it wasn't humanly possible to staff someone there, STAFF, for 24/7. So we closed down the shop, stopped paying rental, and we used technology instead. And that was when we implemented our first vending machine in 2019 during World Food Day in October. We said we actually rolled out our first vending machine at Toa Payoh, stocking up all the interesting items that either were shorter shelf life or interesting products that we couldn't really redistribute. And we complemented it with some items that were daily necessities as well. So the food vending machine was actually born out of a need to reduce food waste further for the food donations. But secondly, we also implemented this thing called the bank card system where there's food credits inside so that anyone in need can walk to any of the vending machines and redeem food 24/7. Because now the other gap that we have in the ecosystem of feeding the underprivileged is that usually charities only operate during office hours, maximum half a day on Saturdays. But if any one of you who are even listening in or been through a bad phase before, if you go hungry or if the sole breadwinner, for example, of the family is suddenly incarcerated for whatever reason and he didn't get his monthly salary for that month yet, right?
Mm.
The wife and the children are suddenly left with an empty cupboard and empty stomachs. So they actually are looking for food like on a Sunday or at midnight or something like that. So that's where the vending machines come in. And it becomes very handy where anybody can just supplement their food 24/7. Yeah.
Right. Can you imagine a world, right, whereby if every 7-Eleven had something like that, where you could just walk
Correct.
in? That would be wonderful because 7-Elevens are everywhere, convenience stores are everywhere. If we could do that, that would be amazing. But also, one of the things, would you ever consider having a pay it forward initiatives with all the hawkers in Singapore?
Yes.
Meaning to say that I
Um,
have a choice to now have, my char kway teow and say that, okay, look, here's $10. Please, at your discretion, all right, the next 3 people or 4 people, whoever it is you want to, please give them a free meal.
yes. So we actually experimented with something last year. So last year, because of the sheer need, right, everybody needed some cooked meals, and there were many other ground-up initiatives that was doing this paid forward concept where people were just going out buying meals, telling this hawker uncle, like I pay for 10 char kway teow, 10 Hokkien mee or whatever, anybody that comes. So the feedback from the hawkers was the problem is there wasn't a way to recognize the people that were redeeming the meals. Yeah. So because the hawkers also felt that they wanted to ensure that help was being given to the right people. It's not about the
Right.
money, because they are already being paid. So they wanted to be very sure about it. So they wanted a way to be able to track it. So this inspired us to actually roll out something, and you might be the first to hear this because the press release is being drafted. Our
Oh,
bank cards is going to be accepted at F&B outlets.
oh,
So what
that's
happens
amazing.
is, yeah, so we are actually empowering, firstly, the people in need to redeem food aid, not just through vending machines, but at some point they will be able to walk into the kopitiams, fast food chains as well, to redeem the meals any time of day. It also means that they can choose whatever they want to eat. So it means that if today I want to splurge on some large Happy Meal or something, right? Up to you, because it's your food credits is your way of redeeming it. Or let's say one of your relatives or your daughter's birthday is coming up this week. I want to accumulate all my credits, but I want to blow it out and eating it somewhere like maybe a bak kut teh or a better meal. You can actually choose. So actually by June, July, we will be making this official announcement that the underprivileged will be able to redeem the F&B credits at some selected F&B outlets as a pilot program. But by end of the year, there'll be a lot more F&B outlets that will be invited to be onboarded for people to redeem their meals island-wide. And coming back to the pay it forward, we are finding a system, finding it an appropriate system where the donors can just say that if I walk into, this fast food chain, for example, you can actually pledge it forward, and the money actually just goes back to the food bank to topping up the bank cards so that the credits can be well utilized as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. And with these food bank cards, right, at the same time, this brings up one of the questions that I was thinking through as well. When you decide how much credits goes into this person's card, or at least on the whole, does that kind of also be determined based on income levels, or is this a mean or median level that you've already found?
Okay. So, Edric, to answer that question, it was a question that we asked ourselves in 2012. How do we as the food bank ascertain who needs help? And my brother and I decided very early on, that that's not our forte, because the social fabric in Singapore is already well documented. That means most of the families in need, right, or the people in need have already gone through some level of means testing. So instead, we will be helping the organizations that have already this network of people. That means as long as these people have been accredited by the NGOs that gave the approval to get special bursaries or special food aid or whatever, it means that they have already gone through the system of testing. So in the same token, we're working with all our NGO partners to confirm who are the people in their database. That means this 1,000 people here, this 500 people here, that they have already gone through the different rounds of means testing to be able to receive this food card as well. So I'm not saying that the system is perfect, but this already actually helps us a lot to expedite the distribution versus, imagine a food bank going door to door asking people for information. I don't think we want to do that. Yeah.
No, not at all. Hey, if that's the case, right, then would you also be able to share a little bit more about how corporates, and not just just the personal side, but how can corporates take part? Let's just say, for example, as part of our employment acts, to also include, let's say, a dollar contribution. It's like how CDAC or whichever organization is doing it. Can they pledge it directly to Food Bank instead?
Yes. So the food bank, we have our IPC status, so any donation is 2.5 times tax deductible. But importantly, when we work with corporates, right, one very interesting part about the food bank is we run the food bank like a business.
Hmm.
So why we have regular different corporates that has been coming back to us is because every year we're always introducing something new, something refreshing, especially in the good old days when, everyone can just volunteer, or pledge their own money or pledge corporate money very regularly, right? So actually going door to door, giving food bundles doesn't quite cut it anymore. They're always looking for a fresher eye, more impact, on what they can do. So for any of the corporates out there who actually wants to have an X number of people being engaged, we will be very happy to even customize a certain program for any of your team members. But if you are just an entry level where you want to experience what food banking is all about, there are a few ways that you can support. So firstly, you can start by adopting a bank box. So at some point, I think all of us will not be locked up at home. Okay, for myself, I've never been locked up at home because we're
I
essential
just hope we don't.
services. Yeah. So, but a lot of us would be dabbling 50% of the time working from offices. So definitely we'll have time to interact in the office as well. A lot of corporates, something that's very popular is to adopt our bank boxes. So the bank boxes is a very interesting way to collect donations where actually people like you and I can drop 1 or 2 packets of items in this bank boxes, but the corporates can adopt it because there's an adoption fee of about $300 to $500, depending on the size of the box. These boxes are just stationed in the offices, and then the employees can just donate the items, and then the food banks will just go around to pick up the food. So this is one. The other thing, you can adopt our food bundles as well. And on this note, I'd like to share that we thought that during this heightened alert phase that the people that needs help won't be so high because it's not that bad a circuit breaker, right? So but we were quite shocked to have received now about 5,000 requests already, urgent requests for emergency food bundles because a lot of the kids were being held up at home, and I think a lot of the per hourly paid employees as well has also been now stuck at home. So basically, the income levels has also then dropped. So a lot of them are actually asking us for emergency food bundles. So immediately, if you wanted to do something, you can actually just support our food bundles. Some corporates have started writing. They said, "I'm sorry, my volunteers cannot leave the house right now. I can't do anything. But is there something that collectively that we can do?" So what you can do is just to suss out our food bundle program that's actually ongoing right now as well, and then you can actually do your part. And so these are two of the major programs that we have. But importantly, the other thing also is when time permits and when everything opens up, we are looking for volunteers as well as corporates to adopt our vending machines. Because now with COVID, right, the popularity of the vending machines has actually gone up because it minimizes the contact between the volunteers, and it's very, the underprivileged can just go any time of day, they can redeem whatever they want. It's a safer way to distribute food. So a lot of the CDCs, the mayors have actually reached out to ask us to deploy more vending machines. But I would just like to do a shout out that actually the vending machines are not free to us. So we have to buy these machines, and each machines cost 10, 15, $20,000 depending on the size of the machines. So in order to effectively deploy more machines, we actually need to raise funds again to ensure that we can actually put more machines out there. But the corporates can also help us to top up the food. So it can be, yes, you pay a one-time kind of a fee, but you can continuously also be engaged. Like every week, Monday to Fridays or Saturday, Sundays, you can actually help us to top up that particular machine as well, clean it down, and so it becomes adopt a machine kind of a thing as well. So it can be quite an interesting program for corporates. Yeah.
Right, that's great. And you were mentioning with the urgent requests and all this, it got me thinking as well. I'm sure that you also get very much involved in the schools, right? And it's really important to also then share that message with the kids so that they can take that back to their families, and eventually, because they're the ones who are saying that, hey, I'm hungry, I'm this, I'm that, but they don't have an outlet, and I don't think they definitely know. I mean, you've openly talked about you being a mother of 4, and
Mhm.
the amount of work that goes on in your household, I'm sure that you would definitely be able to appreciate that. That's for sure.
Yeah, so we were very heartened in our earlier days, right? That a lot of teachers started writing to us because there's no so other than the school pocket money fund, and some of the underprivileged kids having free food in the canteen, right? But we actually do not have a proper what we call a backpack program, like how it is in the US.
Right.
So how is it in the US is that every child that possibly needs some kind of food help, the family needs help, the food is actually disseminated via the child, but it comes in the form of a backpack that looks very school bag like. So actually
Right.
nobody knows whether this kid needs help or what's in that backpack. But basically the school backpack program has been ongoing for a very long time, and is a discreet way of disseminating food via the children. But because in Singapore we are very protective of whether is it confidentiality or whatever, these children are usually not highlighted in any way. So only school counselors will know, the form teachers will know, and a handful of the other teachers looking after welfare would know, but they cannot be made known openly as well. So while we really want to ramp up our initiatives into the schools, it is not as simple. But actually during COVID-19, right, this 1.5 years, a lot of the principals, a lot of the schools have been writing to us directly because they realize that they are not going to wait for the agencies or MOE to do something about it. They themselves really want to help the group of students that they already know. That means immediately before the closures of the schools, even during this time, we already got the emails like say, hey, I know that I have 100 kids. This 100 kids will need food. They will need food bundles. They will need this. Can you help me? And can you go door to door? So actually, they already written in to us very early on because we learned from last year. Last year, we were like scrambling, to go door to door for all the children. And just remembering, it's not just one child.
Mm.
This child likely has an older or a younger sibling in school as well. So it's likely 3 meals. And plus, there probably will likely be an elderly that's stuck at home that, also needs food aid. So usually when we help the kid, we're also helping that nuclear environment as well, because likely the mom and the dad is working outside. So he or she doesn't need the food. But whoever who's stranded at home actually requires the help and the aid. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. Because I remember that you were mentioning the US. The US also has this the kids welfare program. So, but the only thing is that then they get coupons, which of course they have to go and collect from themselves, and it's from the schools, and they have to take it from the canteens, right? Whereas in Singapore, on the other hand, I'm not sure if such a program also exists.
Yeah, in Singapore there isn't such a program. So actually, from the food bank's angle, we've done it again a little differently with another program that we have, which is the Juniors Club.
Mm.
So we have opened up volunteering or sharing sessions at schools from as young as 2.5 years old. Because, like I mentioned earlier on in this conversation, that hunger doesn't have a face. So
Mm.
what we did was, instead of eyeballing who are the people in need, why don't we just do it from a CSR angle? That means we are telling the children that, hey, you can do projects on food waste, you can do projects on, how to eradicate food insecurity in Singapore, and maybe indirectly by raising awareness about food bank and food insecurity as school projects, as volunteering opportunities, this will infiltrate to people that, hey, actually maybe out of the 10, maybe one of them said, hey, actually I go hungry on a regular basis. I can actually learn something from this. Maybe food bank can give me help, or food bank can redirect me to the right agency that can then help me and my family that is facing hunger issues. So we've done it from an education standpoint, but importantly, you're right to say that children are the ones that is going to change the world that we live in. And they are the ones that are more concerned of their peers as well. So it's a very powerful thing, right? Even from primary school. The child can actually identify which of their friends are going hungry on a regular basis, because children don't really lie. I mean, the younger
Yeah.
ones, they're very honest about it. And so if children can actually start spreading the word, or maybe highlighting that to their teachers, that, hey, I think my friend needs help, then maybe the peers can help the peers also. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, the fact that it's very dear to my heart, teaching the kids, making sure that they themselves, right, come up with, or at least come forward with all this information. And not only that, living their lives with a lot more integrity, honesty, and a lot more compassion for the fellow
Mm.
man. I mean, the scariest thing about Singapore right now is that we've been in that rat race, from the 1980s all the way up. And the level of humanity, I think, or compassion, it gets less and less as we enter the more capitalistic society and needs.
Yes. I think empathy to a certain level is somewhat lacking. And
Mm.
the most amazing thing that we've kind of realized, and I see it from my own company, right? Because we started the food bank, we have also then enabled a lot of our own employees that are my hires are 90% non-graduates, right? They don't even, if they have O levels, I'm very thankful because they are like making deliveries, and they are just maybe customer service, but it really like paper pushers, orders, and stuff like very basic stuff. But what I've done is because we started a charity and we enabled them to support the food bank as well, it has made a positive impact in their lives because they themselves, maybe they might be facing some financial difficulties or whatever it is, right? But they have also then come to realize that, hey, although I'm facing my own struggles, maybe cash is a bit tight, but there are plenty of people that's way worse off than I am.
Yeah.
And because a lot of times you're in this rat race, right? Everyone is just working, throughout the day. I mean, actually now it's not even 9 to 5 anymore. It's like 12 to 12, right? Like we're working because of flexi working and everything else. We're working
Mm.
longer hours than ever before. We have empowered them to say that although you yourselves are facing some difficulties, but you can still help someone else in need. And it's the same thing that the students have taken away. So we have also done a lot of charity work at maybe some more neighborhood schools, as you say, not just elitist schools, but neighborhood schools. And some of the children, maybe they themselves come from not so good family backgrounds, for example. But because they have engaged themselves in some CSR, maybe they also then feel that, hey, actually, I also can help other people. And I'm hoping that this becomes a ripple effect. And this child brings this with them as they grow up and as they enter the workforce as well.
Wonderful. I mean, this is wonderful. I definitely pick something up when I'm starting my own thing, right? I'm definitely doing this because what you are doing is imparting not just the idea of charity or helping your fellow man, but imparting the value of gratitude, the act of gratitude of every day waking up knowing that I've got something to be thankful for. My life isn't that shitty.